Hey there, Pyromaniacs. Halo's in a weird spot as of late, isn't it? Halo Infinite is winding down support as they start to focus on new games, which has led to a bit of a dry spell in terms of stuff to talk about regarding the franchise. Unless you really care about overpriced cosmetics and a multiplayer game played exclusively by jaded millennials who don't know when to let go. Sorry, was that too real? Oh, and the Halo show is potentially getting a second chance at life on Netflix, because it's just like what Buddha said, life is suffering. And the Halo show is cheeks. I'm pretty sure those were his exact words. But it's not like there's nothing at all to talk about. In fact, many recent events have made the future of Halo sound kind of exciting, if not a bit worrying. Because as Halo fans, it's no secret that it is kinda hard to stay optimistic about most of the stuff we do hear about. That being said, there are enough rumblings as of late that makes me feel like something on the horizon could actually change things up. Not anything astronomical, but at the very least, actual meaningful change, which is more than the usual corpo jargon we're used to from Bonnie Ross and Phil Spencer. What am I talking about? Well, let's pull back a bit. All the way to October of last year when 343 Industries announced that they were rebranding into Halo Studios. It really comes to show just how tainted the name of 343 really is that they felt the need to completely rebrand the company. And it makes perfect sense. Over a decade of doing nothing but damage the reputation of what was at one point one of the most recognizable and beloved franchises in the industry has essentially made 343 a kind of dirty word among gamers. That being said, I don't think this is the games industry equivalent of covering up a totaled car with a fresh coat of paint like most other people seem to. Over the last few years, we've seen the departure of some pretty major key players at the company. The kind of shakeup you only see when a studio realizes it might have been spinning its wheels for a bit too long. The most notable departure is, of course, Bonnie Ross, who was replaced by Pierre Hentz, otherwise known as the man responsible for saving the Master Chief Collection. I don't think I'm being too optimistic to say that Pierre has potential to turn the ship around. This kind of leadership shakeup could be exactly what Halo needs to finally break free of the rut it's been stuck in, because more than anything, what Halo needs right now is a clear focus. Luckily, from what we're seeing from not just the rumors, but from what Halo Studios has already shown us, that might be exactly what we're getting. On the same day they announced the rebrand, Halo Studios also showed off something called Project Foundry. It's a simple tech demo of Master Chief and his Mark V armor on Alpha Halo, running entirely on Unreal Engine 5. Project Foundry was initially meant as a private in-house project to see if they could make a Halo game in Unreal, and they apparently liked the results so much that they decided to make it public along with the announcement that the future games would be developed using this engine. This is a huge deal as it marks the first time in franchise history that the games would be developed on an engine that isn't an offshoot of Bungie's in-house Blam engine. This is honestly a brilliant choice that's unfortunately necessary with how Microsoft treats their contractors. Considering the studio formerly known as 343 is still mostly contractors, the people working on the games are only there for a short period of time. With an in-house engine, this means that a majority of development time went towards just teaching contractors how to use their architecture, just for those same contractors you just trained to then leave the company a year later. Meanwhile, most developers are most likely already experienced with Unreal, meaning they can skip the learning process and jump right into working on the game. This could prove to be a great way to attract fresh talent who are more familiar with industry standard tools. Developers who might be a little more used to working with Unreal's infrastructure rather than learning and working on a custom engine built from the ground up. This could lead to a much more fluid development cycle, fewer delays, and ultimately a feature-complete Halo game right out the gate. Now, the most interesting thing about Project Foundry and the company's switch to Unreal is how it coincides with two rumored projects that have been corroborated by quite a few industry insiders. The first of which is the rumored possibility of a remake of Halo Combat Evolved within the Unreal Engine. This rumor goes all the way back to June of last year when Tom Warren at The Verge let it slip that 343 was working on a Combat Evolved remake, one that could be built using the power of the Unreal Engine. Now, it's one thing when some dude on Reddit posts a blurry picture of some marketing material, but when an industry veteran like Warren leaks something, it's not exactly coming out of nowhere. And then, months later, we get Project Foundry, a demo made in Unreal Engine that is attempting to replicate and modernize the style of the original game. It gives credence to the idea that Foundry might not just be a tech demo, but a teaser for something more. Now, whether this will be a one-to-one remake of Combat Evolved, or more of a reimagined remake in the style of the Final Fantasy VII or Resident Evil remakes, it's too early to say. But regardless, it'll be cool to see this game given a proper remake treatment instead of the funky looking asset flip that is Combat Evolved Anniversary. And hey, if it does well, maybe they'll end up remaking the whole trilogy at some point. Even though I thought that the Halo 2 Anniversary remake was good enough, that could be kinda cool to get another one. The second rumored project that we kinda assumed was dead that might not actually be after all is Project Ecker, otherwise known as Project Tatanka. Or is it Tatanka? I still don't know how to pronounce it. However it's pronounced, it was the leaked Battle Royale mode for Halo Infinite. Originally, it was being developed in-house by 343, but was supposedly cancelled years ago and shifted hands a certain affinity to be turned into a standalone game, where most insiders at the time assumed it was eventually silently killed. But apparently not. Trusted data miner and leaker Grunt.api discovered that there are still test servers running and active for Project Ecker, and according to Rebs Gaming, who tends to have pretty good insider sources, it's possible that the game has been converted from a Battle Royale to an extraction shooter, which is probably a good call considering the Battle Royale ship has long since sailed. On one hand, Project Ecker is yet another example of the people in charge chasing trends. Going from Battle Royale to extraction shooter definitely doesn't feel like a decision made out of love for the franchise, but instead is a decision based on what the charts say is currently popular. That being said, on the other hand, it's currently being made by Certain Affinity, Max Hoberman's company. Max Hoberman, if you don't know, was the man responsible for the multiplayer components in an underrated indie darling known as Halo freaking 2! This is the man that basically invented the current form of console multiplayer as we know it today. If we're gonna get a multiplayer-only live service Halo game, which just the sound of that makes my skin crawl, I could not ask for a better person to oversee its development. So with 2 spin-offs in development and the inevitable 7th mainline installment no doubt in its planning stages at the moment, there's actually a lot to be excited for about the future of Halo. But as for Xbox as a whole, that's a different story. This console generation has not been kind to Xbox. But to be honest, Xbox hasn't exactly been kind to the console generation either. Only recently have they started putting out more high-quality games like Avowed, Hi-Fi Rush, and the Indiana Jones game, with even more great-looking titles on their way later this year. Sadly though, it was too little too late, as Xbox is, in all ways except officially, pulling a Sega. It doesn't sound like they're pulling out of the console race entirely, at least not yet, but it seems like all their titles going forward will either be timed exclusives or will release day one on both Xbox and PlayStation. This inevitably raises the question, will we eventually see Halo on PlayStation? At this point, it seems like all signs are pointing to yes. In November of last year, Phil Spencer told Bloomberg that he doesn't see any red lines in Xbox's portfolio, and specifically mentioned Halo as a possibility. Not to mention that there are quite a few, albeit less substantiated, rumors about the Master Chief Collection potentially making its way to PS5 and even Switch 2. However, there's still the unresolved issue of hackers in MCC. The waning support for the collection over the years has led to way more hackers being able to cheat in increasingly absurd and egregious ways and get away with it. From wall hacking and no-clipping around maps to spoofing other players' gamer tags in hopes of getting them banned. With this being the first time many people would get the opportunity to play these games, I'd hate for their first impressions to be broken servers infested with cheaters. If MCC does end up getting ported to the other consoles, I hope that it means they'll ramp up support for the game again, at least doing the bare minimum of moderating against cheaters. In fact, ideally, the possibility of ramping up support could lead to new features getting added to the console versions that people have been asking for years, namely mod support in the same vein as modern Bethesda games or Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe not full support, but a list of curated mods from trusted creators like Inferno Plus's Cursed Halo, Caboose 1066's New Covenant campaign, or even the Halo 1 and 2 demo reconstructions from the Dig Site team. Although, considering what happened with them, despite their work being the most significant, they're also unfortunately a bit of a long shot considering I doubt Microsoft wants anything to do with them anymore. Which is insane because Microsoft is basically the ones that screwed them over in the first place, but that's a story for another time. In the end, it's clear at the moment that Halo is at a crossroads, and the future holds way more questions than answers. But when you factor in everything, including the shift to new leadership, there's a slight glimmer of hope that the franchise can potentially, finally, find its footing again. But with Xbox being Xbox, it's also hard to ignore the potential pitfalls. One thing is for sure, Halo's legacy is too important for it to fade into obscurity. Whether it's through new projects, a shift to third party, or even going back to the drawing board and just reimagining what makes Halo Halo, there's still a lot of ways for them to move forward. Here's hoping the newly dubbed Halo Studios will finally rediscover Halo's soul. I like to believe that Halo's not finished, but that this is only a new beginning. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, leave a like and become a pyromaniac yourself by subscribing. Until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.